this is a segment of society that operates under their own rules. They think they can do whatever the hell they want, and they can,
Yeah.
apparently.
Thousands of victims implies, at minimum, hundreds of perpetrators.
You guys all have lawyers, right? Like, why in the hell would you email some yahoo like this?
Welcome to Bourbon and Rum, the podcast dedicated to civil conversation. I'm Kent, I like rum, and I'm from the left side of the aisle.
And I'm Kyle. I like bourbon. I tend to be a little more conservative. We're brothers talking politics over bourbon and rum.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking one of my favorites. I'm drinking some Stagg Jr., named George T. Stagg is the senior, but he was the guy that ran Buffalo Trace Distillery before it was Buffalo Trace. But that's part of that antique collection. And George T. Stagg is a 15-year whiskey and super hard to find, super expensive. The Stagg Jr. is about 8 or 9 years. Still hard to find, but not as bad. And you can score one for under $200. And yeah, really good, really rich, barrel proof, 131 proof. So, but it's aged enough to where it doesn't bite as much as a 131 proof might. So, how about you? What are you drinking on?
I am on Santa Teresa 1796, a triple-aged Solera rum, hecho in Venezuela. So another Venezuelan rum. So, well, always a lot of news, but I thought it would be interesting. A big tranche of Epstein documents got released. We haven't really, we've hinted at this, but we haven't really dug into this very much lately. It's like 3 million pages.
I mean, we talk about Epstein's come up, I think, every single podcast, Ken.
Yeah, but we haven't rolled up our sleeves on it. I think they dropped about 3 million documents. Looks like that's only still a small percentage of what's out there, but
it's half.
Some interesting stuff.
At least half, if not more.
Okay. Well, so 3 million more. I think there's a lot of work to go through what's out there, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's a little bit shocking to me. I mean, do most, I'm not a legal expert, but do most trials involve millions of documents?
It's a good question. I mean, do we know where these things came from? There's the Miami trial where he got the sweetheart deal. Then they were gathering evidence for whatever they had him in prison for or in jail for that trial. Where else did they get all these documents?
Well, a lot of them are like news articles and clippings. Then a lot of it's emails.
A lot of it's his emails.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the court records in the official Epstein library. There's like 52 cases that are referenced. And a bunch of them are various Jane Does versus Epstein. I mean, all the way up to Jane Doe number 103 versus Epstein. So there's a lot, but not all of them are cited. And then
so these are cases brought by the victims against him?
I'm assuming that. And then there's stuff against his estate, state of Florida, United States. There's 3 United States versus Epstein's. There's 5 United States versus Maxwell's. But, I don't know if they're all individual cases, but they're individual case records, I guess.
Well, this most recent, it's a bad look for the former prince of.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like every time this turns out, he looks worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, I guess it's not shocking that there's pictures, but you'd think people would take a little more care not to get photographed, but apparently not.
Reports apparently, and I got to check source on this. This is from the Daily Mail, that Epstein was hooked up with the KGB, and that's where the money came from.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
that's kind of obvious. Either KGB or Mossad or I guess CIA. I mean, this. So the other thing that's linked on Drudge is a YouTube video of an interview with Steve Bannon,
mm,
and this is late in the game. I don't know when that was, but like it was after his his last arrest. Like it was late in the game that he was talking to Steve Bannon. And I got to tell you, I listened to about an hour of the interview, and I am more convinced than ever that this whole thing is a set up, like a made up deal by Intel. This guy,
so Bannon interviewed him for 15 hours.
yeah, I don't know how long it. I saw the tranche that I saw was like a 2 or 3 hour link, and I didn't listen to all of it. But yeah, I have to say, I've kind of been expecting to hear that Epstein was kind of, smooth and kind of, you know what I mean? He sounds like a bum. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's doing all this, and Bannon is completely buttering him up, and he's like, yeah, well, it's worth a look. Like you wouldn't trust this guy with $50. I'll say that. Much less $50 million. And so how did he fool the whole world? And I'm just not buying that it's because he was so clever. I mean, I think, again, we know that there's more to this, but like most of the names that are now implicated are all copies of email exchanges that he had with them, including like Howard Lutnick, who was so clear-eyed about not wanting to hang out at the house because it was creepy. And so, but later he's having conversations with him, and the normalness of these conversations, knowing what the subject matter was on the back end, is, I think, the creepiest part of the thing.
Well, and just what is crazy is how prolific the guy is. I mean, he's having regular contact with just randomly tons of people from different walks of life. Somebody said, oh, well, he's just a great advisor. And it's like, what the hell is this idiot advising anybody on,
I don't know. Maybe I don't have something new to say about this, but just the volume of it. And like you said, the connection. He's got email correspondence going on with everybody. He's talking to the head of the Nobel Prize Committee, and he's yakking it up with industry leaders. The woman who's now the general counsel of Goldman.
This is the email from Richard Branson to him in 2013. Dear Jeffrey, it was really nice seeing you yesterday. The boys in water sports can't stop speaking about it. Anytime you're in the area, we'd love to see you as long as you bring your harem. And then he's like bulleted points. He's like, I think Bill Gates was willing to say that you've been a brilliant advisor to him, that you slipped up many years ago by sleeping with a 17-and-a-half-year-old woman and were punished for it, that you've more than learned your lesson and have done nothing that's against the law since then. And as a single man, you seem to have a penchant for women. But there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, something along those lines.
Wait, what? That was in an exchange with Branson?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, and then I'm thinking, you guys all have lawyers, right? Like, why in the hell would you email some Yahoo like this? But, I think, like, this is a segment of society that operates under their own rules. They think they can do whatever the hell they want, and they can't, apparently.
Yeah. So what happens from here? Are they going to do anything? I mean, it's required an act of Congress to get the Justice Department to release the files. Do we expect them to do much aggressive prosecution? Who else has been arrested in this deal?
Well, and so far, most of what you've seen is people that were associated with the guy in some way, but there's not really smoking guns. I mean, there's allegations about various people and such, but there's not really. And I think that's the piece that I think a lot of people were hoping for, is that there were smoking guns in this thing. I think if there were smoking guns, they'd have been, somebody had pulled that trigger a long time ago. I think it's still a lot of people with egg on their face for having associated with this scumbag for way too long.
I agree. So what's the societal upside or impact of that? We just back to business as usual. That's just, we get a little look. That's how it is, and full speed ahead. I don't know. Like, how do you break through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on. I don't think it's worked out too well for Andrew Mountbatten. I don't know. I mean, it's. I know that there's a. It was interesting too, reading about a bunch of Democrats piled on too with the Clintons, and I guess they found them in contempt for not testifying at some hearing. But then it's like, well, what the hell are they going to do to them for being in contempt? You know, nothing's going to happen there. I mean, they're not going to send anybody to jail over being in contempt to a congressional hearing, I don't think.
Right.
And then what was the congressional hearing going to do other than, you know, I mean, to your point, it's like this stuff's embarrassments or problematic. But I feel like if there was anything in here that was prosecutable, it would have been prosecuted.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, other than it just kind of leaves me sick to my stomach. We know we've got, these are numbers from the FBI, thousands of victims. Even if you've got very prolific clients, thousands of victims implies at minimum hundreds of perpetrators.
Totally. Yes.
And just nothing.
Yeah. I mean, how many of these, how do you have thousands of victims and nobody has any recourse? Which then can take you down a whole other path of how many victims of sexual assault are victims and the perpetrators have never been charged.
Yeah. No, I think that's obviously a lot. Yeah, I don't know. So what do? I just sit here and just be pissed about it? You know, like it's really exasperating.
Yeah.
I think you called this. I think you said early on that whatever we get, it's going to be unsatisfying. I think that's proven true for sure. It really is unsatisfying. Do you feel like the outrage is fading among people? Like it's just been out there long enough?
The problem is with this slow trickle is it's like the people that, you know, are named here. I don't know that like there's anything I just don't know that there's any surprises left. I mean, there's some pictures and stuff that somebody hasn't seen and are embarrassing to people, but like, I don't know. I mean, like you said, there's no smoking guns that have been released. There's nothing that came out that was like, oh my gosh, nobody ever said this. I mean,
So why did they fight it so long? If it
right.
really is as much of a nothing burger, see, that's like, you can't have it. Like, there's something missing here. Like, what we've got is 3 million like old emails that might be mildly embarrassing, and yet the gymnastics they were willing to go to try to avoid this, you know. And I mean, you know, arguably the first government shutdown, you know, like,
well, now, you know, I disagree with this, but I did find interesting. Bill Barr had a editorial in the Wall Street Journal, was talking about, you know, it was everybody's up in arms that they didn't release this stuff in 30 days. And his thing is like, you know, processing 3 million documents for public release. And, you know, he talked through the legal consequences and things that have to be analyzed. His point is just like that's a huge task that it was never going to get done in 30 days. I mean, they got done, but they're like, I think his point was just the public just thinks, oh, somebody's got a binder, and Pam Bondi didn't help when she's like, I got a stack of binders on my desk. Like, she made it sound like she had all this paperwork. All she had to do was hand it over, and that's a gross oversimplification of the true process. And so I think that was part of the expectation too, that fell flat. But I mean, I do think there's an element of that it's like it's such a enormous administrative exercise, and then, hey, there's nothing that's going to be there. Well, nobody's going to buy that. Everybody's going to be like, oh, you're covering something up. And then it's like, well, then you jump through all these hoops and you release all this shit. And then it's like, yep, there's nothing there. Well,
yeah, it like, I mean, clearly I've got I'm seeing the boogeyman lurking there. I mean, I admit it, but again, if that's not what's going on, certainly the approach that they've taken plays into my nefarious narrative. Even if I'm wrong, it's just like, well,
yeah.
you've for a fact, like everybody knows, that at least a portion of the population thinks the longer they take, the harder they're working. They got people with scissors all day cutting Trump's name out of things. Whether that's true or not. But when you take a lot of time and you fought it at every turn, what are people going to assume?
Yeah, well, the previous administration, why didn't they even try?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. And I mean, man, I would hope that it's not to protect Bill Clinton,
yeah.
Please, I don't know.
Well, both administrations had seen everything prior to the push to release it. So either side would have released a bunch of crap to smear the other side if they thought there was something actionable, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, to your point, the thing that ought to leave us all with a disgusting taste in our mouth is just how, it's like what they said about Harvey Weinstein years ago. Like, well, how Harvey is. He's kind of rapey. I mean, they didn't use his word, but that's what a lot of the actresses said is that he was, he had a penchant for that sort of thing. And I think that's pretty sleazy. All of these folks, Trump included, all these people, like, well, Epstein and women on the younger side. Like, what the hell is that? Like,
yeah,
it's
the normalization.
Everybody's like, you know how Jeff is. Like, what?
Right. Bring your harem. Ha ha.
Yeah.
I think it was Branson who wrote some kind of retraction, like, well, what I meant was that he had 3 female attorneys, and I just wanted to see that. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, and then to me, it then begs the question of how many other unsavory characters are out there that all these billionaires know. Well, Jim, what he's into,
Right. I got a guy for that. And that's who Epstein was, the guy for this. What do you think about the intelligence connections? Do you find anything compelling there?
It would make sense. But again, like, why wouldn't they be using this? And maybe they are in the background somehow.
Frustrating.
Yeah.
Does anything else catch your attention this week? Do you have an opinion about the Fed chair nomination?
I don't know that much about him, except that I've seen folks on the left and the right speak highly of his credentials.
It sounds like he's a grown-up who has a reasonable shot at the job. Like it's a legitimate choice. It's not like some rando pulled out of the air like Lindsay Halligan or like he was a viable
I mean,
guy.
if it was Matt Getz, we might have an issue.
but kind of a different. I thought this is really interesting. I don't know how much you've been paying attention to like the precious metals market, but actually I've done pretty well on a gold fund over the last couple of months, and both gold and silver took just a plunge after the announcement. But I think that's interesting because the reason that gold would be high would be fear of inflation, right? That's what drives precious metal investment. And apparently the market thinks that this guy is going to be an inflation hawk. But the president of the United States has been bullying the current Fed chair to lower interest rates for a year. And, lowered interest rates are they're inflationary, at least, whether they actually cause inflation or not, but they're an inflationary force that way. So I don't understand what the market's seeing in this guy. Do they think that he's going to hold the line and he's going to be able to tell Trump, no, we've got to be careful and we don't want to overheat the economy? Because I think Trump's decided he wants interest rates low, whatever the cost.
I mean, I think he sees interest rate reduction as that's a pretty demonstrable factor in cost of living for many, folks, houses and cars and everything else. And so to me that, that's part of his desires to see that come down, people's costs come down. And I do think, inflation's way down. From a rate standpoint. So.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, yeah, so you cut interest rates and it makes things a little bit cheaper today, but if it devalues your dollar by 10%, then you're back to the same place. You can get short-term benefit.
I guess it's not as precarious a position we were when it's, inflation's spiking and super high.
Right. Honestly, from a macroeconomic standpoint, I'm taking party hat off here. Low interest rates, high GDP growth, and full employment, that's actually your best recipe for reducing the impact of the national debt. Quite apart from personal finance and what this saves you, interest rates on our sovereign debt, our national, treasury is that's a huge issue. And if that is high, that really puts a huge burden on our economy. So if you can pull it off, you're willing to tolerate a little bit of inflation as long as you get robust economic growth and full employment. But that's the hiccup. That's what I think the worry is that you can, cutting interest rates is a little like hitting a little nitrous oxide into the engine of the economy, right? It revs the engine up. But if we don't have full employment, then inflation, if everybody's working, then you might have dollar inflation, but you will also have wage inflation, and it will kind of equal out. And you cheapen the value of your national debt, which is a great thing. But where we were over the last couple of years is pretty high inflation and not the same wage growth that we've had. And that's what's really toxic for people.
I do find it interesting, a lot of the doom and gloom over tariffs hasn't really materialized. We've got inflation's under control. We've got decent GDP growth. We've got decent employment. The stock market's in pretty good shape. I don't know if it's something people want long term.
Boats made in France are the tariffs are hurting, as is the dollar, the decline in the dollar. If a person's looking to buy a boat and have it shipped over from France, that's
okay. Yeah.
But objectively, things look decent in the economy right now. I don't even know that the tariffs per se were the problem. It's the chaos and the randomness of the tariff that I think is really hard to keep up with. You can put a tariff on things to say we need to level this out, but I did it in a tweet because I was mad. Like, that's kind of hard to deal with, I think.
Liberation Day is what I was referring to, but yes.
Okay. But we've had lots of other
new holiday, Liberation Day.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
I can't
also,
say this.
Well, I just wonder if it also shows how there's a lot of things that we worry, well, this is going to destroy the economy. Well, maybe it's stronger, more powerful than individual actions like that, too.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. It's an interesting time because I don't think the economy is good universally. You know, I think you've got some sectors that are really on fire and some others that aren't. I guess that's maybe the case all the time, but it's pretty noticeable right now. People have said if you didn't have data center construction, that's riffling its way through the whole economy, and it's not just NVIDIA stock on chips. You know, there's companies out there building these huge data centers everywhere, and that itself is driving things. By the way, now I'm changing subject again. I read a really interesting article in the Wall Street Journal this week about, I've worried a lot about job disruption from AI. Not personally. I think that, you know, I'm at the point in my career where my knowledge of the business can sustain me. And so my trick is to learn how to use these new tools, but I think I'm safe. But I've worried a lot about the disruption. I've seen the power of this stuff and what it can do for coding and for writing and a lot of basic tasks. But this article in the Wall Street Journal gave me a lot of hope. It was like, actually, we fear this, but it's not really, usually that's not really the case. Like, they were like, remember when they first came out with the spreadsheet and people were like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to need an accountant.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, now accountants are one of the most in-demand specialties, and so the spreadsheet didn't do that. What happens is accountants do a lot higher level work than they did. And so, you know, really the trick is for those that embrace this and say, all right, I'm a coder, my career is at risk, so the way I fix that is I become master of this tool, and I'm in front of the rest of my competition.
Yeah. No, I think there's definitely some of that. I did laugh, though. I was listening to a podcast the other night. Listening to Rogan, and he had Matt Damon and Ben Affleck on it. They were talking about this new movie of theirs. And Ben Affleck's talking about AI, and, well, you know, it's never going to be able to replicate what Hollywood does and acting and movies. You know, I mean, people will be able to tell that ours is an art form and that's artificial. And I hope he's right, but I don't believe it. I mean, within, you know, months, this thing has created a way to create videos from scratch. Today, no, they're not replacing Hollywood blockbusters, but I don't think that's that far away.
I think the trick there is, where does the art land? What part of it is art? And in my mind, I do think so. This is a little more narrow than that. I can't speak to Hollywood movies, but I can 100% tell, I believe, when people send me, like people on my team send me papers or documents that they've done that they've cranked through the AI. I can spot it a mile away. And that means, in my mind, that there is opportunity for people who can cut through that genericness with, you know, significant and salient points. I don't know how that applies to Ben Affleck, but I do think that, I don't know. I mean, do you agree? Like, everything sounds like a non-controversial B+ essay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it depends on, a lot of it just depends, and this gets back to your point about the people that will win are the people that have the skills to manipulate it. I mean, yeah, if you cut and paste the first run out of ChatGPT, anybody's going to spot that. But I think if you used it multiple runs and then you adjust a few things to make it fit yours, I mean, there's a lot of things. Or like one of the things it'll do that I use all the time, like a lot of times it's my words, but like, hey, what are 3 points for this topic or something? I mean, there's shortcuts, there's time saving. I think, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but I think it has to do with how well you're able to manipulate it. If all you do is cut and paste, it's not nearly as good, for sure.
Yeah, I agree, but I think that's making my point that the unique part that a human brings becomes more and more valuable in a world when everything just gets dumbed down to that generic flat. We had an interesting exchange at work because there's a disagreement between two groups in our organization, and we're kind of writing like competing vision documents, kind of. I don't want to be more specific than that, but we had gone down a path, and one colleague had written one, and it was pretty pointed. Usually in business communication, even when there's a significant point of disagreement, it doesn't start out like, "You asshole, you're completely wrong." You put a little bit of wrapper around it. But man, when you ran it through ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever it was, what came out, the part that got sanded down the first was the barbs, the kind of the shots over the bow buried in the thing. And I just thought that was interesting. Like, nothing's controversial. You smooth it off and make it sound nice, and you take the edge out of it. And I had to ask, I was like, so which of these three things do you think is wrong? Because we think that one of these things is wrong, and we didn't say that. It was all just kind of couched in platitudes.
What do you think? What are they saying in university circles about the long-term impact of AI on the university experience?
Oh boy, I wouldn't want to speak for that. I know there's a lot of dialogue happening about it. I thought it was interesting, back in the old days, 24 months ago or when ChatGPT first came out, wasn't it like that? It's like less than 3 years, right?
Yeah.
But you had a lot of university people, a lot of faculty and administrators being like, "We're going to ban this," and I thought it was really good. One of the senior administrators at the university I work at came out and said, "No, we're not going to ban it because it's part of the world. What we're going to do is we're going to teach and expect smart use of the tool." You know what I mean? I thought that was
right. Yeah.
That's the kind of smart approach. Like, anybody who says they're going to ban it, like, we're going to lock up the calculators, and I'm just like
when a few big cities early on were like, "We're banning Uber. You can only use a traditional taxi." Okay, good luck.
Yeah, in general, if you are imprisoning technology, you're probably headed down the wrong path.
Yeah.
Control and manage it. Sure. Okay. So if you're, and that's exactly what happened, right? Like Uber, you can't really prevent it, but now if you want to drive Uber in New York, you got to have a sticker that lets you pull into LaGuardia and JFK, and you're going to pay money for that sticker. Like, they regulate it, but just, we're going to ban it. That just doesn't work.
But I guess my question is, could you, there's universities now that are completely online, like University of Phoenix. And you got to take so many courses, and each course consists of this, this, and this. This is a syllabus. This is what we teach. This is just curriculum. I mean, couldn't you duplicate? I mean, probably wouldn't be that hard to use ChatGPT to duplicate the curriculum of an entire degree. And then could you get to a place where you could create a self-completed degree with accreditation, and somebody could get a degree through the ChatGPT created university and say they've got a degree?
To that very end, I was listening to, I feel like we do a lot of like retweeting of podcasts, but I was listening to another podcast where this was part of the discussion, and the guy said, I don't know if this is true, that being in a class, a live class, versus reading the book gives you an 80% better experience. And getting a private tutor versus being in a large class gives you another like 80% boost or something like that. And so his suggestion was kind of like yours. You give the subject matter of the degree as the knowledge base that the agent works on. But he said he's done this, and I'm going to try it. He said, prompt your AI to tutor you in this particular topic. Teach me, ask me hard questions, don't let me off the hook. Build a prompt like this and let it, through chat and dialogue, let it give you homework, let it grade your homework. I thought that was kind of brilliant in a way.
Yeah.
So I got a couple things I'm going to try for that. There's a couple of concepts that I've just for a long time struggled with, and I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to say, don't just give me the answer. I don't get this at a core level. I need you to tutor me and help me understand it at a basic level and see what I get.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, well, and somebody else was talking about, it was some obscure subject, and they were talking to GPT, and it screwed it up, and it didn't, the results weren't right. And then we got to talking, and they're like, and surely the topics come up, but it learns. So it could be that it doesn't know something, but it needs to learn it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it gets better practicing.
Yeah, definitely. That's all I got. I'm boring today, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we went down good luck, producer, in coming up with a title for Epstein to AI.
I guess the best news of all, though, is we're not talking about somebody being shot, and that I have to give grudging credit to the administration for realizing that something needed to change in the strategy that was going on, and I hope that the Democrats in kind will come to a little more peace on that. I'm just pleased that it's not the topic of the front headline today.
Yeah, it's a good point. We talked about this last week some, and I've seen some other comparisons. The previous administrations and deportation activity, and it's actually a lot less in this administration than other administrations, but there's a lot more protests. Some administrations there were never any protests, and so I hope that the strategy then becomes, how do we, I'm glad that he's doing what he said he was going to do, but can you do it in a way that doesn't invoke protesting and violence? And there probably is. There's probably ways you could continue to enforce and continue the mission, but without creating a scene. You know what I mean? And it sounds like that's what maybe they're trying to do. So that's good.
Well, yeah, and I think that, I have strong opinions about immigration. I do not have a feeling that we ought to just look the other way on violent criminals. I'm totally fine with closing the border and enforcing the law. I'm totally fine with operations to deport violent criminals. I do think, I'm not probably going to change my mind on this, insofar as the Biden administration left the door open, and not just the Biden administration, others as well. It's kind of BS to say to somebody, well, we'll let you get here. You can get here. We've got companies that'll look the other way on a fake Social Security number. We've got all kinds of ways that our economy will take use of you, and then without crime involved, without just because targeting people and like felony arrests without warrants. I just don't. You would make the point that the Democrats in Minnesota and others kind of fanned the flames of protest. I maintain that the nature of the enforcement effort in Minnesota was designed to provoke, and we kind of need neither of those. We need accurate, fair, just execution of the law, not points being made on either side.
Yeah, and I dig into it further too. I mean, a lot of the deportations, there's people that are criminals, but then, like a big priority, there's like 1.4 million deportation orders that have never been enforced. And so that's a lot of what they're enforcing is somebody's already got an order to deport and they're not leaving. So, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how they can do that without, be able to enforce the law without this orchestrated network of protests. I don't know, I don't know what the answer is there. It sounds like they're taking another path because it doesn't sound like it's in the news nearly at the same frequency it was, but I don't think they've stopped deportation either. So maybe they found a way to do it under the radar. I don't know.
Well, and again, I'm sure you'd find people that would see it differently. I'm not arguing that we shouldn't deport people that need to be or deserve to be deported. I think that just being here because you came across and weren't stopped at the border and just living your life and being productive, that's why I bristle at the term illegal immigrant. I don't know. We changed our mind. We let you in and we were happy to take your labor, and now we changed. Again, if there's crime involved, if these are, bad actors, by all means. If someone gets in trouble, by all means. But I don't know, we agree on this. We got to have a different way, a different path. But who's going to bring it up? I don't understand why the Democrats don't, but the Republicans aren't going to come out and say, all right, now we're going to launch a massive amnesty plan. Even if it's the right thing to do, they're not going to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think, to me, if somebody's the criminal records and the deportation orders, hard to argue that those people should stay. But outside of those boundaries, it certainly would be more economical if you found a faster path to citizenship for folks. But I think there's also, you talk to somebody who's come to the country legally and went through all the pain that involves. There's a bit of anger involved too when you take somebody that just, came across the border and now we're just going to let you in automatically. So I know there's a different perspective there also.
Yeah. Again, I don't think that the person that you described, I don't think they should have been subject to that pain. I think we desperately need immigration in this country. And that's the part that nobody's talking about. And
but we do, but I mean, the reality is if you eliminated every barrier to immigration, every country in the world we would be inundated with people. I mean, there's more demand out there than there are probably slots that most people would want. I mean, I don't think most people want 100 million people to come across the border every year, but there's enough demand to bring that many people per year, so you can then have to be, okay, where do you draw that line?
Yeah, but
which is always funny to me because everybody globally talks how bad the United States is, but every single one of them wants to move here. So,
well, I don't think you're right there. I mean, I get the impression that most Danes are okay staying in Denmark. I don't know that they're, The,
Talked to a lot of Europeans that would love to live in the United States because they don't like 67% taxes.
but then why don't they?
It's not that simple.
No, I
As
think
we've
it
said.
is. I mean, Trump said if you're from Scandinavia, we're going to give you. They fast tracked all the white countries. They said that we were going to lower standards for Scandinavian countries.
I'm just saying it's not unlimited. So I think it's.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I don't think it's unlimited, but and then how do you allocate it? There's the H-1B approach, like we're going to take the smartest people that your country has, or do you take people that are in the greatest need? Or how do you balance those?
You prioritize people with illegal daycare money smuggling schemes. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That was already done, but never. Low blow, sorry.
Hey, thanks for joining us on this episode of Bourbon and Rum Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us keep the good spirits flowing.
And we invite you to join this conversation. Follow us on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear.
And until next time, cheers.